Buccaneers have reportedly placed a franchise tag on wide receiver Chris Godwin. He's projected to earn a salary of $16.43 million on the tag for the 2021 season. This leaves Tampa with several other players who are now scheduled to be free agents. So they've reportedly discussed deals with linebackers Shaq Barrett and Levante David. They also have Ndamukong Suh, Antonio Brown, Rob Gronkowski, Leonard Fournette, and Ryan Suckup, their kicker, to figure out.
Well, I mean, they're going to keep Tom happy. Godwin's a good young player. He's a wide receiver. He's a weapon. Listen, they can't sign all their guys. This is the way it goes. You can't. I like all of them. I think pass rushers are more valuable. I would probably work in a deal to sign Shaq Barrett.
I think the defense has to be your priority. I mean, for all the talk about everything that Tom Brady accomplished this year, and nothing should be taken away from that, that Super Bowl was really about the defense. I mean, it's not as exhilarating to talk about, but that's what happens. The Kansas City Chiefs did not score a touchdown. There's a reason for that.
Well, and Tampa also drafts late in rounds. If you look, Joy, the best players in this draft in the top 15 are mostly offensive players. So where Tampa's going to be drafting, if you had to lose a defensive player, that late pick's going to get, there's a pass rusher and there's some interior guys and pass rushers. Tampa's probably, I would guess, going to draft defense. I just don't think you can pay for everybody.
Well, you can't. I mean, Brady's going to likely restructure his deal, and they can still work out a long-term deal with Chris Godwin. So this isn't, set in stone. Just for if they don't work out a long-term deal, that's what he's going to be guaranteed this year. But everyone's not going to come back this year. Like, it's just, there's a salary cap, and you can't make it work.
That's right.
Like, people are going to leave. That's what happens with teams every single year. But they just have a lot of guys to figure out. I personally would prioritize the defense. So Russell Wilson trade rumors are swirling, and tension between the Seahawks organization and him is very public. And one person that would be very happy to see Russell Wilson leave the NFC West is Rams defensive lineman Michael Brockers. He said, you cross your fingers a little bit. You hope whatever you hear is true, and he's out of here, so you don't have to chase him around twice a year. He's a phenomenal player, but if he chooses to leave and leave the division and make it a little bit easy for us, to each his own.
Yeah, I completely agree. If I was a defensive lineman, I'd be rooting like crazy. Ends up with the Raiders. No question.
I have to imagine that anyone in that division hears this news and just rolls their eyes. Like, what are you talking about? Like, please. Actually, it's a great idea. Let me leak a couple extra stories that I heard to my sources to kind of push this along and add some extra drama to it if I can.
Well, if Aaron Donald tomorrow was traded, every offensive lineman in the NFC West would celebrate. I mean, there are certain players, you don't lose any sleep leaving your division.
You have to win your division first. And this is a very, very tough division.
Brutal.
So, yes, this would be great for any other team and any defensive player in that division if Russell Wilson leaves. And that is a story that the Seahawks should pay attention to. When your division opponents are excited about the idea that you're going to make this kind of a catastrophic mistake, you probably want to take your foot off the gas on we don't like all the drama that's happened since the season ended, and we're taking calls on Russell Wilson.
If Nick Saban retired tomorrow, there will be a party in Baton Rouge and Athens, Georgia. Your rivals will tell you what they think of your players and your coach.
That part. Andre Drummond hasn't played in almost a month. The Cavs have been looking for a trade partner. They haven't found any takers on their deals yet, so he might be inching closer to getting with a team. The Lakers are reportedly interested in signing him in an effort to boost their front court depth. He has a very expensive contract that they've been having some trouble moving. He has a $28 million salary that they're trying to work a buyout.
Are they doing this because of Anthony Davis?
The Lakers, yes.
They need a rim protector.
Yes, they want to add some size. He's a good defender as well when he's locked in. So, yeah, I mean, look, you can't trust Anthony Davis. I thought it was kind of a stretch to think that this was the passing of the torch. I mean, LeBron hasn't fallen off at all, let alone enough to be transferring power of the NBA over to Anthony Davis. I just don't think Anthony Davis is that guy, and he's been in the league long enough that we know what he is.
There's a book on him.
Yes.
He's
and
good.
that's not a knock. Everybody has their own identity and
That's right.
their own journey. Like it's kind of difficult to hold people to standards of Tom Brady and LeBron James and Michael Jordan. Like these are extreme outliers, and we put everybody in the category that they need to be on that level. And that's just some people's personalities just don't fit that. But I think also it's very obvious at this point. I think it's safe to say that Anthony Davis is pretty injury prone.
Yes.
So you can't rely on him in these spots. You want to have some depth and some size. So look, they're third in the West. It's not like they're slipping out of the playoffs or anything, but they do have to manage LeBron James's time. He didn't play much in the All-Star game, and he's a little, banged up right now as well. You want to be healthy going into the playoffs, but they have to make the salary work.
Good stuff, Joy, with the news.
Well, that's the news.
And thanks for stopping by.
The Herd Line News.
You know the first fullback ever selected to the Pro Bowl? Moose Johnson. He's got 3 rings, Fox Sports NFL analyst, former Cowboy great, joining us live, brought to you by Mercedes-Benz, the best or nothing. All right. Big day, a lot of celebrating in Dallas, a lot of happy times. So it's interesting. So you know how it works in life. You get the big money, expectations grow. That in any industry, in our industry, you get the big money, the expectations grow. So we got a 4-year contract for Dak. What are the expectations this morning, Moose, in Dallas? What if at the end of 4 years, what will he have to do? And we say, you know what? He's worth the dough.
I think he has to win a Super Bowl. I really don't think there's any other alternative. And I think one of the reasons that this contract got done is, it's been so long since the Cowboys have competed for a Super Bowl championship. So this is the piece that had to be there as part of the team. It's been an interesting offseason at the quarterback position. And I think that every Dallas Cowboy fan is grateful that Dak Prescott did not become part of a carousel during the course of the offseason.
Why did it take so long? I looked at the deal yesterday, and Dak really got whatever he wanted. He didn't have, you can't franchise tag him. He didn't have to sign a 5th year. I'm happy for him. I thought his agent did great. But gosh, if you're going to win the deal everywhere, why did it take so long, do you believe?
Well, I just think the timing, when you looked at the 3 guys that they wanted to bring back, and this was something that the organization talked about from the very beginning, when all these negotiations started a couple of years ago, that they wanted Amari, they wanted Ezekiel, and they wanted Dak all together. Really what happened there is the order got out of whack, right out of the gate. When you signed Ezekiel Elliott first to a contract that many people thought was maybe a little bit too lucrative for a running back at that time, you really put yourself behind the 8 ball a little bit. So I think in hindsight, if you could go back in time and do this all over again, Dak Prescott would be the first person you do. And that saves you a little bit of money because the Mahomes contract is not out there at that time. But I do know that the big thing, and this is very smart on Dak's side and his agent's side, is really kind of hanging in there and fighting for that 4-year period of time, because this is going to give him another opportunity to come back at 31 and do another contract. And you don't often get to see, players in the NFL get 2 big contracts, that quickly the first part of their career.
So listen, Zeke, Amari, Zach Martin, Dak, a lot of money on the offensive side. As soon as this deal was signed, and I said, okay, they get $15 million break on the cap this year. My gut feeling, Moose, is they got to draft defense, and they got to spend that $15 million on defense. I think Dan Quinn's going to make them better defensively. But when Dak gets that money, and if you ran the Cowboys, would you now really, for the next 2 drafts, go heavy into defensive personnel?
Yeah, you might follow the Carolina Panthers last year, where they went all defense with their draft picks. You need an edge rusher to complement Marcus Lawrence. You need somebody on the back end. There's a few key positions that you have to address. And I think we all saw last season when that defense was really struggling early on. We did the Atlanta game and we did the Cleveland game. And both of those offenses were going up and down the field. Atlanta was doing it through the air and Cleveland was doing it on the ground.
Yep.
And that defense could not stop them. The only reason that they were in those games was because of the play of Dak Prescott. Now, the offensive line has to be healthy. I would not be surprised if Dallas does go onto the offensive side to address something in the draft, that it's a little bit of depth in the offensive line. that would be the one area that I think that they would need to address, because once that offensive line started to break down, that was really the first brick that kind of collapsed that foundation last year, were the injuries in the offensive line, and then obviously the injury to Dak Prescott. But early on, while that defense was struggling, mightily to try and find its way, Dak Prescott was the one guy that was able to keep Dallas in those games. So offensively, you've got to feel good about it. And I agree with you, Colin. I really do think that Dan Quinn was a tremendous addition,
yes,
to the Dallas Cowboys, not just from scheme and everything like that, but the culture, the way that Dan Quinn coaches and creates that energy on the defensive side of the ball. I think you're going to see a completely different side defensively from the Cowboys this year.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the easy one. Defense is going to be better. That's the easy one. They're going to spend some money on defense, and Dan Quinn may not have worked as a head coach long term, but very few guys do. The guy was a great coordinator. So it's funny about the division. So this morning, if I had to guess the division, I think Philadelphia is in a little chaos. I'd put them fourth. I do think Gettleman had a good last draft. Barkley's back. I'd probably put New York third, but a puncher's chance third. And then I look at Dallas, Dak healthy again, second year under Mike McCarthy, and Washington. But it's interesting. Washington